Drift a little, imagining you're somewhere else. A city, maybe. Or a bakery. Or anywhere without this much mud inside your shoes. You straighten up after an hour, maybe two, and your spine audibly protests. You ignore it. Everyone does. Back pain is a way of life here. So are bruised palms and knees that creak like old doors. A child wanders by with a basket full of nettles. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Soup, he says. Right. Dinner. Nearby, your cousin is cutting flax. Her knife is dull, her patience duller. She slices the stalks, ties them into bundles, and stacks them in the sun. They'll dry, be threshed, spun, woven. Eventually, someone will wear a tunic made from this day's work. Probably you. You wipe your brow, dirt smears across your forehead. You don't bother cleaning it. The day continues long and slow, sun climbing higher. There's no reward, no applause. Just the knowledge that if you don't do this today, you won't eat tomorrow. You pause to stretch your arms and sigh. The wheat waves at you like it understands. You sigh back. Welcome to medieval labor. You trudge back toward the village with your tools slung over your shoulder, like weary companions. Every part of you is sore, your knees, your back, your fingers, even your eyebrows somehow. The sun hasn't set yet, but it's thinking about it. The sky is dipped in that hazy gold that makes everything look vaguely biblical, as if someone somewhere is about to part a sea or turn water into ale. You'd settle for just a bath, which brings you to your next medieval inconvenience: cleanliness. You're not filthy exactly. You're earthy, seasoned. You have the permanent aroma of someone who's spent the day performing interpretive dance in a compost pile. You haven't bathed in days, maybe weeks. You don't remember. No one keeps count. There's no calendar marked Scrub Tuesday. You wash when you can, or when someone complains, or when a particularly aggressive dog mistakes you for a snack. Still, you decide to head down to the stream. Not to fully bathe, that's a luxury, but maybe splash some water on your face and arms. You pass two boys rolling in the dirt, laughing, smearing each other's cheeks with mud. It's hard to tell if they're playing or exfoliating. The stream isn't far. A narrow ribbon of brownish water that smells vaguely of moss sheep and optimism. You crouch at the edge, ignoring the fishy slick that dances on the surface. You cup some water, splash it on your face, and feel a shiver crawl down your spine. Cold, but cleanish. You rub your arms, noting the layers of grime and sun. Your fingernails are half dirt, half peasant pride. You resist the urge to chew on them, not because it's gross, but because you saw someone get scolded for it once by a chicken. Historians still argue whether medieval people bathed regularly. There's evidence of bathhouses in towns and soap-making guilds. But for most rural folk, water was for drinking and working. Bathing was considered unnecessary, at best dangerous at worst. Doctors warned that opening your pores made you vulnerable to disease. So people avoided hot water like it owed them money. You take another splash scrub behind your ears, and then dry off with the least grimy corner of your cloak. That counts as hygiene, right? A girl nearby is washing vegetables in a basket, turnips mostly, and something you hope is a radish. She nods at you. You've got moss in your hair, she says casually, like she's telling you it might rain tomorrow. You smile and leave it there. Moss is very in this season. Back in the village, someone's lighting a fire. The smoke carries the scent of herbs and damp wood. A few people gather near the hearth to warm up and trade stories. You approach and sit on a log. No one says anything about the smell. That's how you know you're home. An old man nearby scrapes mud off his boots with a stick. I once went a whole year without a full bath, he says proudly. Only lost one toe. Everyone nods respectfully. You lean closer to the fire. Its heat is uneven, flickering a little smoky. But it feels good. You stretch your hands toward it and watch the sparks leap up like fireflies with ambition. Beside you, a dog rolls over and sighs, dust puffing from its coat like ancient flour. Someone hands you a small piece of cloth soaked in something sharp-smelling herbs mostly, and maybe vinegar. You dab it on your hands. A peasant's version of hand sanitizer. You feel very modern. You sit quietly soaking in the heat, the grime and the hum of stories rising with the smoke. You may not be clean, but you're warm. You lean back from the fire, your joints creaking like the village well pulley, and consider what's next on the day's majestic itinerary of suffering. A soft grumble from your stomach answers the question. Dinner time. Or what passes for dinner. You shuffle toward your cottage again, where a thin column of smoke suggests something is bubbling in the pot. You pray it's stew. You pray even harder it's not yesterday's stew reheated for the third time and lovingly stirred with the same spoon that doubles as a shoehorn. Inside, your cousin is hunched over the hearth, poking a small cauldron that's clearly seen better centuries. The smell wafting up isn't exactly inviting, it's more of a mystery. An earthy, onion-adjacent scent with notes of desperation and boiled hope. Turnip and bean, she says, not looking up. You glance inside. One turnip. Possibly half a bean. And a lot of water doing its best impression of soup. You sit down on a stool that lists slightly to one side. The fire crackles. A dog scratches itself in the corner. You ladle out a bowl of the stew and give it a cautious sniff. It doesn't fight back, so you take a sip. It's hot, which helps. Heat is flavor in these parts. Historians still argue whether peasant diets were woefully lacking or surprisingly nutritious. Most agree they were carb-heavy bread porridge stew, vegetables in season if the season is generous. Meat rare unless something dies or is too old to walk. Protein usually came from legumes or the occasional egg if the chicken was feeling generous and no one else beat you to it. You chew slowly, mentally identifying the ingredients. Turnip. Maybe parsnip. Definitely a rock that somehow made its way into the pot. You move it aside and keep eating. Your cousin adds a dash of vinegar to her bowl. You do the same. It doesn't help, but it makes you feel like a chef. The rest of the family eats in silence. Not out of solemnity, just efficiency. Talking wastes energy. And energy is precious when dinner is made of root vegetables and daydreams. Afterward, someone breaks out the bread. It's brown, dense, slightly sour, and crusted with something that might be flour or just the dust of centuries. You tear off a piece and dip it into the stew. It doesn't soak up much, but it softens enough to avoid dental trauma. Your younger cousin offers a smear of something yellow on a leaf. Lard, she says. We traded for it. You raise your eyebrows like she's presented truffles. You spread a little on your bread. It glistens in the firelight like treasure. You take a bite. It's greasy, salty, and absolutely divine. You close your eyes. Luxury. A fly lands on your spoon. You flick it away and keep eating. No one notices. No one would notice. It's protein if you're bold enough. After dinner, the pot is scraped clean, every drop. The dog gets the dregs. You rinse your bowl with water from a wooden bucket, give it a perfunctory wipe, and place it back on the shelf. A neighbor stops by with a jar of pickled something. No one knows what it is. No one asks. You all take a small bite and smile like it's normal. It's not. But what is? Someone passes around a clay cup of weak ale. You sip it. It's sour, slightly fizzy, and full of mysterious floaters. But it goes down warm and easy. Your stomach gurgles, unsure if it's being nourished or ambushed. The sun is nearly gone now. Shadows stretch across the floor like lazy cats. You sit by the fire again, full by medieval standards, which is to say not starving. Someone hums. A cousin plucks a string on a poorly tuned lyre. The dog farts audibly. No one reacts. You lean your head against the wall. The clay is cool, smooth. Your belly is quiet, finally. And you think to yourself with a mix of disbelief and amusement, you survived another medieval dinner. The fire has dimmed to a gentle glow, now throwing soft, flickering shadows on the wall like a puppet show performed by ghosts with very low energy. The air inside your cottage is warm, but it carries a permanent edge of smoke and damp wool, cozy in a way that makes you question whether your lungs will ever be clean again. It's time to prepare for bed, which sounds nicer than it is. There's no bed frame, no memory foam. Just a wooden platform stuffed with straw and covered in a flattened wool blanket that smells faintly of goat and strongly of other people. You'll be sharing it, of course. Privacy is a foreign concept here, like air conditioning or flavored toothpaste. Your cousin's already climbed in, curling under the cover with the practiced efficiency of someone who knows there's no such thing as a good sleeping position on straw. The dog circles twice and wedges itself between your feet. Someone outside sneezes so loudly it could wake the saints. You hear a frog answer from the stream. Before you lie down, you take a moment to check for bedbugs. They're common, expected even. You squint at the seams of the blanket and the corners of the straw mattress. Nothing scuttling yet. You consider that a win. You ease yourself onto the mattress. It creaks. So does your back. A loose bit of straw pokes through the blanket and jabs you in the ribs. You shift. It finds your hip instead. You sigh. This is fine. This is comfort medieval style. Historians still argue whether medieval people actually slept through the night or followed segmented sleep patterns: first sleep, a period of waking reflection or prayer, then second sleep. There's some fascinating evidence suggesting that waking for an hour or two around midnight was completely normal, even expected. You plan to sleep through whatever your body allows. Outside the village quiets. The chickens are long since asleep. The cows shuffle softly in their pens. Somewhere a man is finishing his ale under the stars, muttering a prayer, or maybe just a complaint. Probably both. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders. It's itchy, and it doesn't quite cover your toes, but you tuck in anyway. Cold feet are part of the vibe. Your thoughts drift as your eyes adjust to the darkness. No moon tonight. Just the pale glimmer of starlight seeping through the cracks in the wall. You hear the faint whimper of a dog chasing dreams, and the even fainter whisper of someone singing a lullaby in the next cottage. Your cousin mutters in their sleep and rolls over, stealing half the blanket. You tug it back. A battle of wills fought silently nightly and always unresolved. You lie still, listen, breathe. You think about the morning. You'll wake with the sun stiff and hungry. There will be more turnips, more tools, more mud. But not yet. For now you close your eyes. The straw mattress sighs beneath you. The dog begins to snore, and you float gently into the darkness wrapped in wool history and the faint scent of lard. You wake before the sun, not because of some romantic connection to nature's rhythm, but because someone kicked you in their sleep. Again. You're not sure if it was your cousin, the dog, or possibly the ghost of someone who died from bad soup. Regardless, your ribs are now aware that the day has begun. The air inside the cottage is cold. Not refreshingly cold. Not crisp autumn morning cold. But damp, bone-nibbling cold that crawls under your tunic and sets up shop behind your spine. You sit up slowly, brushing straw from your hair and your eyebrows. Then you reach for your boots, which, surprise, are still damp from yesterday. One of them has something growing inside. You pretend not to notice and put them on anyway. There's no breakfast laid out for you. No eggs sizzling, no hot coffee. Just the fire, which has burned down to a sullen pile of embers, and a single crust of bread on the table, harder than most philosophical questions. You gnaw at it like a determined squirrel. It tastes like old flower wood smoke and faint hope. But it fills the space in your stomach-marked placeholder until further notice. You splash a bit of water from a bucket onto your face, flinch at the cold, and wipe off with the corner of your sleeve. Hygienic. Not really. Traditional, absolutely. Then it's time to check on the animals. You head outside into the gray-blue dawn, where the fields are still wrapped in mist. The village is barely stirring. A few dogs are awake, barking at invisible problems. One rooster is practicing its crow, sounding more confused than triumphant. The chicken coop greets you with the usual chorus of clucks and low-level rebellion. You scatter a few handfuls of grain. One hen immediately pecks another over a seed. Chicken diplomacy is a violent and personal thing. You gather the eggs, 2 today, warm and perfect. You cradle them like treasure. One will be eaten. The other might be traded for onions. Or maybe a story. In the village economy, stories and onions have roughly equal value. Next, you check the pig. It grunts at you unimpressed and returns to its mission of sleeping in mud. The cow is more cooperative, nuzzling your hand and offering a soft lowing. You milk her with practiced hands, collecting enough for a small jug. It'll be turned into something edible later, maybe. Maybe not. Historians still argue whether livestock was kept inside homes or outside in separate pens. In many cases, they were kept under the same roof, mostly for warmth and theft prevention. But your setup is a hybrid. You like your sleep animal adjacent, not animal infested. You carry the eggs and milk back inside where the cottage is still dark, but warming slightly. Your cousin stirs. The dog does not. You set down the jug. The bread's still sitting there mocking you. You consider dipping it in milk to soften it. That works. Kind of. If you pretend. You sit by the fire and poke it back to life, feeding it small twigs and dried moss. Eventually, it grumbles awake and gives off enough heat to toast your knees. You stretch, yawn, scratch, and stare at the smoke curling toward the ceiling beams. The day ahead looms, filled with tasks you already know by heart. More digging, more herding, more scraping mud off your clothes and soul. But for now, just for a few minutes, you sit in the hush between night and work. The world is quiet, cold, and perfectly ordinary, and somehow that's enough. The sun finally hauls itself over the horizon, like a tired baker late for the oven. A streak of pink and gold cuts across the sky, setting the rooftops aglow in a way that makes everything look slightly more poetic than it feels. You step out into the light, adjusting the worn belt of your tunic and trying not to trip over a loose chicken. It's market day, or more accurately, it's the hope of market day. Because even in the medieval world, not every village had its own full-blown market. Sometimes it was just a gathering near a crossroads. Sometimes just one traveling peddler with dubious garlic and even more dubious stories. But today there's a promise in the air, a faint hum of activity, and maybe if you're lucky, something to trade that isn't dirt. You pick up a small bundle. You've prepared a few chicken eggs, some dried herbs, a carved spoon, and a tiny wool doll your cousin made out of leftover threads. It's not much, but it's yours. The path to the market weaves between fields and thickets. Along the way, you fall into step with others, neighbors, strangers, the occasional goat on a leash. Everyone has something to offer or something to want. You walk quietly, listening to the crunch of boots on soil and the low murmur of plans being made in soft, early voices. The marketplace itself is modest. Half a dozen carts, a canopy made from patched cloth, and the unmistakable sound of a man arguing with a goose. A few fires burn low under cooking pots. The scent of boiled cabbage hangs heavy, which is how you know things are getting festive. You find a patch of ground and spread out your wares. Not grand, but hopeful. A child stops to look at the doll. You smile. Her mother pulls her away gently. You pretend not to be disappointed. A tanner nearby lays out scraps of leather. Another man has a barrel of salted fish. One woman is selling onions so pungent you can feel them in your dreams. You glance around and spot someone with honey cakes. Real ones. Round, browned, glistening. You begin calculating how many eggs it might take. Historians still argue whether markets were truly communal spaces or rigidly controlled by local lords. Records suggest both. Tolls were often required to sell, but for the poorest, bartering under a tree or along a fence post was still fair game. The real economy was a quiet, persistent thing, like the frost on a cold morning. It touched everything without announcing itself. You trade one egg for a pinch of salt, another for a linen thread. The spoon is taken in exchange for a small wedge of cheese that you hope isn't haunted. The doll, eventually, the child returns with a goose feather and a shy smile. You accept. Later, you splurge 3 herbs and a goose feather for half a honey cake. It's sticky sweet and about the size of your palm. You nibble it slowly. It's the best thing you've eaten in weeks. Maybe ever. Around you, the market buzzes. A man plays a reed pipe. A dog steals a fish. 2 elderly women argue about the price of nettles. It's chaotic and earthy and imperfect, and it works. You finish your honey cake and dust your hands. You've gained little in the way of treasure. But in a world where survival is the baseline, even a thread of linen and a crumb of sweetness feels like luxury. As the market begins to wind down, you tie your empty pouch to your belt and stretch. The sun is high now. Time to return. More work awaits, of course. But this morning, in its humble way, reminded you that not all transactions are about wealth. Some are about taste, others about stories, and sometimes just the joy of holding a goose feather like it matters. The road home from the market is a little warmer, a little busier. The sun is now fully committed to the day, stretching shadows short and heating the dirt path until it begins to puff up faint clouds of dust under your steps. You pass familiar faces, people from your village and nearby hamlets, some trudging with baskets, others chatting with quiet satisfaction or mild complaint. You walk at an easy pace, swaying slightly, with the rhythm of the honey cake still settling in your stomach. A breeze picks up, carrying the distant smell of something roasted and something else that might be manure. You try not to inhale too deeply. Halfway home, you stop by a field where a boy and his grandmother are scything grass. You pause to watch the movement backswing, slice back again. It's mesmerizing, like a slow dance choreographed by necessity and perfected by repetition. The boy grins at you. He offers a turn. You laugh, but take the scythe anyway. The handle is warm from use. You line up your stance swing and immediately catch a rock. The blade rings out, your arms jolt, and the grandmother chuckles like a woman who's seen at least 3 generations make that exact mistake. Sharpness isn't everything, she says. It's rhythm. You hand back the scythe bow slightly and continue on your way, arms buzzing. Lesson learned, leave the slicing to the experts. Historians still argue whether peasants truly hated their lot or simply accepted it with a kind of passive resilience. While records show complaints about taxes, weather, and occasionally bishops, there's also evidence of jokes, games, celebrations. Life was hard, but not humorless. A little further on, you pass a group of children building what looks like a castle from sticks and clods of earth. They've crowned one of their own with a dandelion wreath and declared him king of mud. He takes his title seriously, issuing decrees about frog rights and turnip taxes. You applaud quietly as you pass. Monarchies don't get more grassroots than this. At the edge of the village, you stop at the well to draw a bucket of water. The rope creaks, the pulley groans, and the bucket comes up with a small splash. You take a sip, cupping it in your hands. It tastes of stone and time. Your cousin sees you and waves. Back already, they ask. You nod and hand them a small twist of salt. Traded for eggs, you explain. Their face lights up like you've brought home a pouch of gold. You spend the rest of the afternoon in light labor, helping mend a fence, tying bundles of kindling, patching a corner of the cottage roof with moss and determination. Nothing dramatic, nothing heroic. Just the kind of quiet work that holds a village together. Later, a traveling fiddler appears near the crossroads. No one knows his name or why he comes, but every few weeks he just shows up. His boots are worn, his fiddle case older than some buildings, and his music, well, it makes the chickens stop clucking and the babies stop crying. He plays by the communal fire as dusk returns. The villagers gather slowly, as if called by a silent bell. Someone brings out a jug of ale, another a plate of flatbread. Laughter rises in lazy waves. You sit on a low stone and watch the flames flicker. The fiddler's bow dances, drawing out a tune older than the fields and twice as stubborn. You think about the market, the scythe, the mud king, the salt twist. None of it was grand. None of it made history books. But tonight, under the rising stars, it all feels like enough. The fire blazes gently, now casting flickers of light across the gathering. The fiddler finishes his song with a dramatic flourish, bows low, and receives a round of applause that's more enthusiastic than skilled. A few copper coins clink into his hat. Someone tosses in a carrot. It's unclear if that's an insult or just dinner. You stretch your legs and wander toward the edge of the circle where a group of older villagers have begun telling stories. Not fairy tales exactly, though one does involve a ghost who haunts a turnip field, but memories handed down like spoons or bone buttons. One woman speaks of a flood that nearly swallowed the village 2 generations ago. Another man tells a tale of a bishop who blessed a cow only for it to immediately sit on his hat. There's laughter, groans, and the occasional disagreement about who actually saw what when and whether the cow was named Beatrice or Gertrude. You lean back, resting against a tree stump, letting the fire warm one side of your face while the evening air cools the other. It's not comfortable, but it's not bad either. In medieval terms, this is practically luxurious. Someone passes a mug of ale. It's homemade, slightly cloudy, and smells like wet bread. You take a sip and feel it fizz behind your nose. Warm, earthy, and just enough alcohol to soften the ache in your shoulders. The conversation drifts to local news. A broken cart axle, a goat that may or may not be cursed, and the latest rumors from the Lord's manor. Historians still argue whether medieval communities were isolated or surprisingly well-informed. While travel was rare for most, news traveled through traders, priests, and gossip networks faster than one might expect. The medieval village had its own version of a newsfeed delivered by boots and mouths, not bites. As the stories turn more philosophical, someone wondering aloud if seasons have gotten stranger lately, you glance up at the stars. They blink down in ancient silence the same way they have forever. You wonder how many others long before you lay here staring upward, stomachs full of stew and ears full of fiddles. Eventually, the fire burns lower. People start drifting home one by one. The fiddler packs up his case. Someone sings a soft lullaby. You hum along, not knowing the words, but feeling the rhythm in your bones. You help your cousin douse the last of the flames with a bucket of water. The steam curls upward like a spirit returning to the sky. You walk slowly back to the cottage. The path is familiar now, even in the dark. Crickets sing from the hedgerows. A barn owl calls once then again. Inside, the dog has claimed the warmest corner of the straw bed. You nudge him gently and earn a sigh that's 40% resignation, 60% guilt. You lie down, body aching but satisfied. There's a whisper of smoke on your tunic and a crumb of honey cake in your sleeve. You leave it there. It's comforting. Tomorrow will be another early morning, another stew, another cart to push or field to till. But tonight your belly is full, your fingers are warm, and your mind is humming with stories. You close your eyes and smile. The village sleeps, and so do you. The next morning arrives on tiptoe. No rooster needed this time, just the soft light filtering through the thatch, the rustle of someone already outside, and the faint creak of wood as your cousin stretches by the hearth. You lie still for a moment, eyes half open, basking in the last embers of a particularly cozy dream about a warm bath and a pillow that doesn't smell like sheep. But of course it's time to rise. The dog stretches beside you, then sneezes directly into your knee. It's both a blessing and a gentle curse. You roll out of the straw bed, brushing off hay and crumbs, and slip into your boots. Still damp, still committed to smelling like mushrooms. But today's different. Today is laundry day, not in the modern sense. No detergent pods, no hum of machines, no baskets filled with color-coded loads. Laundry day here is an all-day, full-body community affair involving wooden paddles, river stones, and a surprising amount of shouting. You gather your bundle of linens and tunics, a few of which are stiff with salt from sweat, others simply rumpled and moss-scented. Your cousin joins you, balancing a wooden bucket atop their hip like it's part of their skeleton. You walk together down the slope to the village stream, where a few others have already claimed good rocks. You settle in with your bundle beside a flat one and prepare for battle. Laundry in medieval times was often done in communal spaces using water and lye made from wood ash. Soap was rare and precious. Clean didn't mean fragrant, it meant slightly less offensive. Maybe even passable for church. You dunk a tunic into the water. It immediately tries to escape, swirling away like it's offended. You haul it back, lay it on the rock, and begin scrubbing with a handful of crushed soapwort and sheer willpower. A neighboring washerwoman hums a song with no words. Another beats a blanket against a stone with alarming enthusiasm. You join the rhythm, splashing, rinsing, and wringing. Your arms ache, your knees get wet, and your fingers prune into tiny raisins. Historians still debate whether medieval laundry days were dreaded or cherished. Some accounts suggest they were joyful social events full of gossip and songs. Others describe them as grim chores done in silence and sore backs. As with many things, the truth likely depends on your company. By midday, your pile is rinsed and wrung. The sun is high, warm, perfect for drying. You and your cousin sling the linens over bushes and wooden poles, securing them with smooth stones. They billow in the breeze like ghosts, stretching after a long nap. You eat a shared crust of bread and a wedge of cheese, the kind that tastes like the barn it came from, but in a good way. A few children splash downstream, one with a frog perched on her head like a crown. You watch them head tilted, amused. Then, because you've earned it, you lie back in the grass. Your tunic sticks to your skin, your palms smell like soapwort, and your legs are sore from crouching. But the sky is brilliant. The grass is soft, and someone nearby has begun telling a riddle. What walks on one leg in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 by moonlight, a boy calls. No one, someone answers. That's too much walking. The group laughs. Even the sheep seem amused. You close your eyes. Laundry still damp, but heart completely dry. The clean clothes are stiff now, sun-dried and smelling faintly of soapwort smoke and riverstone. You bundle them up, tie them tight with a length of linen string, and hoist them over your shoulder like a heroic laundry knight returning from a battle well fought. Back in the village, the pace has slowed again. Laundry day has that strange effect, exhausting in the morning, triumphant by noon, drowsy by late afternoon. You tuck your clean things away in a wooden chest and reward yourself with a sit, just a plain, uninterrupted, glorious sit on a low stool by the hearth. Your cousin is nearby peeling turnips with all the joy of someone doing medieval dental work. You offer to help. They refuse. You did laundry, they say, as if that grants temporary sainthood. You nod solemnly and accept your promotion. Tonight is stew night. To be fair, most nights are stew night. Because stew is not just a dish here, it's a lifestyle, a commitment, a bubbling, slightly mysterious cauldron of whatever happens to be on hand, root vegetables, herbs, a scrap of dried meat, maybe even a pigeon, if luck's been generous. You help prepare the fire-coaxing flame from stubborn coals, a bit of dried moss, a puff of breath, and finally a flicker. You add twigs, then larger sticks building the heat. The pot is hung on an iron hook lowered just close enough to simmer but not scorch. The stew begins its slow symphony, one bubble at a time. You toss in the turnips, a few carrot shavings, and a sprig of thyme from the windowsill. The smell rises, earthy, honest, comforting. Historians still argue whether medieval cuisine was truly bland or just misunderstood. While spices were rare and expensive, herbs, salt, and fermentation added plenty of flavor. For the average villager, creativity was often the key ingredient. Outside, the sky slips from gold to plum. Shadows stretch long across the fields. Someone walks by with a bundle of firewood on their back, humming an off-key lullaby. The sheep are settling. A dog barks once, then gives up. You stir the pot. It resists at first thick and starchy, but begins to loosen. You taste a spoonful. It's edible. That's a win. Dinner is served in wooden bowls, passed hand to hand, each person taking just enough. You eat slowly, savoring the heat. There's not much meat, but the turnips are tender, and the broth carries the memory of flavor. Afterward, a few of you gather by the hearth. Someone carves a spoon. Another mends a hem. The cousin with turnip duty tells a story about a man who tried to teach his goose to sing and failed spectacularly. You laugh full and a little sleepy. Then come the dreams. Not the ones in your head, but the ones spoken aloud, plans, ideas, what-ifs. What if we built a second shed? What if the millstream could be redirected? What if the Lord's cook liked my cheese? Each dream is small like a pebble tossed into a still pond. But they ripple. And in the hush of evening, those ripples feel like the beginning of something grand. You poke the fire one last time. The logs sigh, crackles settle. The cottage dims. Your straw mat calls. And as you lie back, belly warm, heart quiet, you think even in a life of mud turnips and stubbed toes, there's peace. And peace, you realize, tastes a lot like stew. The fire burns low, just a dull orange glow, now more shadow than flame. The embers whisper softly, crumbling in on themselves, with little pops that sound like they're agreeing with your thoughts. You're lying on your straw mat again, one hand tucked under your head, the other gently brushing at a thread on your tunic that just won't behave. The night is cool, but not cold. The shutters creak slightly as a breeze nudges them. The scent of the stew lingers, faintly joined now by the sharper notes of cooling ash and the sweet grassy smell of dry hay. Outside, the village is still. Even the animals seem to have agreed it's time for silence. The chickens have settled in their roosts. The dog beside you snores softly, though whether from dreams or indigestion you can't say. You shift a little, adjusting your blanket, which is less blanket and more a thick cloth with ambitions. It scratches but holds warmth, and that's all you ask of it. The room around you is dark, lit only by the glow of the coals and the sliver of moonlight that sneaks in through a crack in the wall. You stare at it, watching dust drift slowly through the beam like little motes of history caught midair. And your mind begins to wander to the frog songs in the paddies of Vietnam, to ice traders on camelback winding through desert trails, to market stalls and bowls of sherbet in Ottoman palaces, to quiet monks with weather-worn sandals and court jesters who dropped pies instead of jokes. You've walked through centuries in your socks, felt the mud of rice fields, held the chill of snow packed into clay, tasted honey that never saw a label and bread born of shared hands. Historians still argue over many things: timelines, authorship, the cause of collapses, and the spark of empires. but they rarely debate this. Humans across time have always found ways to rest, to pause, to sit beside a fire and let the world go soft for a while. You turn to your side, tucking your knees, slightly listening now, only to the rhythm of your own breathing and the creak of the world settling down. This world wasn't easy. It wasn't safe. It wasn't comfortable. But it had its moments. Moments of honey cake and shared stew, of laughter around laundry, of frogs singing lullabies and snow melting into sweet syrup. Moments like this one, moments where nothing happened and everything was held.